that shall also Kalevaram body. Translation purport by His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki. Translation: the Supreme Lord relinquishes the body which He manifested to diminish the burden of the earth. Just like a magician, He relinquishes one body to accept different ones, like the fish incarnation and others. Quote, Supreme Lord, personality of Godhead, is neither impersonal nor formless, but His body is non-different from Him, and therefore He is known as the embodiment of eternity, knowledge and bliss. In the Brihat Vaishnava Tantra it is clearly mentioned that anyone who considers the form of Lord Krishna to be made of material energy must be ostracized by all means. And if by chance the face of such an infidel is seen, one must clean himself by jumping in the river with his clothing. The Lord is described as Amrita, or deathless, because He has no material body. Under the circumstances, the Lord's dying or quitting His body is like the jugglery of a magician. The magician shows by his tricks that he is cut to pieces, burnt to ashes, or made unconscious by hypnotic influences, but all are false shows only. Factually, the magician himself is neither burnt to ashes nor cut to pieces, nor is he dead or unconscious at any stage of his magical demonstration. Certainly the Lord has His eternal form of unlimited variety, in which the fish incarnation, as was exhibited within this universe, is also one. Because there are innumerable universes, somewhere or other the fish incarnation must be manifested, must be manifesting His pastimes without cessation. In this verse, the particular word dati, eternally accepted, and not the word ditva, accepted for the occasion, is used. The idea is that the Lord does not create the fish incarnation. He eternally has such a form, and the appearance and disappearance of such an incarnation serves particular purposes. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, the impersonalists think that I have no form, that I am formless, but that at present I have accepted a form to serve a purpose, and now I am manifested. But such speculators are factually without sharp intelligence. Though they may be good scholars in the Vedic literatures, they are practically ignorant of my inconceivable energies and my eternal form of personality. The reason is that I serve the power of not being exposed to the non-devotees by my mystic curtain. The less intelligent fools are therefore unaware of my eternal form, which is never to be vanquished and is unborn. In the Padma Purana it is said that those who are envious and always angry at the Lord are unfit to know the actual and eternal form of the Lord. In the Bhagavatam also it is said, the Lord appeared like a thunderbolt to those who are restless. Shishapal, at the time of being killed by the Lord, could not see Him as Krishna, being dazzled by the glare of the Brahmajyoti. Therefore the temporary manifestation of the Lord as a thunderbolt to the restless, appointed by Kamsa, or the glaring appearance of the Lord before Shishapal, was relinquished by the Lord. But the Lord, as a magician, is eternally existent and is never vanquished in any circumstances. Such forms are temporarily shown to the asuras only. When such exhibitions are withdrawn, the asuras think that the Lord is no more existent, just as a foolish audience thinks that the magician to be burnt to ashes or cut to pieces. The conclusion is that the Lord has no material body, and therefore He is never to be killed or changed by His transcendental body. Om Agyanatvanandasya Janandina Sakaya Chumani Chamina Chashmi Shri Guru. So Prabhupada says a lot of things in this verse. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells us whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time Krishna says, I descend myself. So the Bhagavad Gita explains how the Supreme Lord he manifests himself here on the earth in his original transcendental form every 4,320,000,000 years. But he also appears at other times in his many expansions, his many incarnations. Like he said, the fish incarnation, we have the Nrsimha incarnation, Lord Ramachandra appeared 2 million years ago. So many expansions, unlimited actually expansions and incarnations are coming, are eternally existing. And of course they appear in different parts of the universe at different times. So when humanity loses its direction and forgets the ultimate purpose of life and becomes, you could say, godless, the Lord appears out of his own will to get back on the right track. Because he knows without receiving this knowledge, we cannot possibly get free from this material entanglement and achieve life's precious goal. And therefore he's given us these Vedic literatures. He sent his representatives like Srila Prabhupada. But it's incredible. I mean, if you walk down the street, for instance, or you just go on the internet and you ask people, who is God? You'll probably get an amazing number of answers, actually. Some will tell you that there's no such thing as God or the Supreme. Some will say that such and such a guru is God, or such and such a demigod is God. Actually, once in Melbourne, Srila Prabhupada was giving class. At the end of class, one man, he puts his hand up to ask a question, and temple room was full of devotees, and he said, Sai Baba, he's also God. And devotees were thinking, oh my God. It was like dead silence for a couple of minutes. I thought, what's Prabhupada going? How's he going to respond to this? Prabhupada very calmly just looked up at the deity of Radha, is it Melbourne? Radha Ballabha? Radha Ballabha? Yeah? In Melbourne? Huh? And of course, when the pure devotees looks up, sees the deity on the temple, he doesn't just see the deity, he actually sees Krishna himself. So Prabhupada just calmly just looked up at the deity, he said, Krishna is so beautiful. He said, we'll take Krishna, you can take Sai Baba. Then he looked up again, he said, yes, he said, Krishna is so beautiful. You take Sai Baba, we'll take Krishna. Because so many people, especially in the Hindu community, are claiming that such and such a demigod is God himself, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, but you never read anywhere in the Vedas where Lord Shiva is claiming to be the original Supreme Lord, or Lord Indra, or the Sun God, or any God. They all claim simply to be servants of the Supreme Lord. Lord Shiva, he's always meditating on Krishna's beautiful pastimes. And of course some even say, as mentioned in this verse, Prabhupada's talking about the impersonalists, that we're all God. I am God, you are God. I am you and you are me. It's a very democratic idea. We can all be God together. For them, the Supreme, it does exist, but not as a person, but as an impersonal white light, glaring, effulgent white light they call Brahman. And they believe that in a state of total enlightenment, they believe the individual self merges with the Brahman and becomes God himself. There's we see these Mayavadis, these very impersonalists. It can be very offensive, actually. See, there's one guru, one Mayavadi guru, he writes to his disciples and he signs a letter, your own true self. Meaning, you are me and I am you. All one. But if I'm you and you're me, and everyone's God, then why do I need to write a letter to you? In this way, the whole philosophy of personalism it's very illogical, actually. It's just like, actually Ramanuja, I had this book and I lost it, but Ramanuja Acharya wrote 108 refutations against the impersonal philosophy. And I just remember one of them was so many waves splash within the ocean. But does any one wave ever become the ocean? So how is it, my dear sir, that you can claim that you have become the Supreme Lord? So, Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita, he confirms in the Bhagavad Gita that we're not all God. That no one is equal to God, no one is greater than God. God means the controller of all living entities. So if someone claims that they're the Lord of all, the controller of all living entities, then they're a bit misled. Actually, there's one guy I met, we were out doing book distribution in Brisbane, and Prabhupada said, if people claim to be God, you can ask them to reveal their universal form to you. This guy, he was claiming to be God, and actually it was me and one other devotee there, and we said to him, can you show your universal form? And we waited there for. We said we're waiting to see it. He said, you didn't see it? He said I revealed it. You didn't see it. You don't have the eyes. I mean, Prabhupada, Krishna's, the Supreme Person is speaking to Arjuna on the chariot. Yet out of ignorance, the impersonalists say that God has no form. Because they have all these arguments. And one of the arguments is that the Supreme is unlimited. Therefore, if you try and talk about him having a form, or having qualities, or performing, then you're actually limiting God. So the reality is that they have the only conception they have of a form is a form like their own, a material form. They have no idea of a transcendental form like Krishna's, who is beyond this world, who is beyond the modes of material nature, who is not subject to birth, death, old age and disease. His soul is non-different to him and his body. They have no... Krishna, and Prabhupada mentions in this verse, the reason why they cannot understand it is because Krishna doesn't reveal himself to them. And you read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Das Kaviraj, he really gets excited. He tells them, why should you suggest such fallacious logic? An interpretation can never be accepted as evidence if it opposes the principles of revealed scripture. For lying, defective perception, mistakes and cheating does not occur in the sayings of the authoritative sages. But if you are indeed interested in logic and argument, kindly apply it to the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you do, you'll find it strikingly wonderful. And then he goes on to say, impersonalists who depend upon their poor fund of knowledge and morbid speculative habits, without service and surrender to the Lord in the forms of hearing and chanting, they cannot possibly penetrate into that mysterious region of transcendence where the Supreme Absolute has a transcendental form which is free from all material tinges. they're simply trying to enter the spiritual region from the mundane platform. That's Krishnadas Kaviraj. He really puts them in their place. So many people, they claim, that they are God, we're all God. Some believe God's an old man, lives in the clouds, he's got this long, great, because they think, creation is so long, creation's been around for so many geological microseconds, millions of years, and therefore God, he must be so old, and he just lives up there in the clouds, he has his little book, just writes down all the bad things you do, so he can punish you at the end of it. And of course, some people think there's just this whole creation, the mountains, the trees, everything that exists is just God. That God just transformed himself into everything. It's just because we understand this is all Krishna's. It's his divine energy, the material energy. It's emanating from him. It's simultaneously one and different to him. Beyond this creation is he has his personal form. Of course, some people think that God is just some remote functionary, that he just appeared sometime in history, created everything, and then he just disappeared, took off, never to be seen again. And some people also declare that the Supreme Lord is just some mythological deity created in the human mind by weak people who need to worship some superior, powerful being. So Krishna, he tells us, he declares in the Bhagavad Gita that out of thousands among men who may endeavour for perfection, out of those who have achieved perfection, hardly even one knows him in truth. It means even big scholars, yogis, philosophers, religionists, they're completely bewildered, even demigods, bewildered. They cannot genuinely really understand who God is, or how they are eternally connected to him, or what it means to be truly devoted to sincerely loving him and serving him, or what it means to completely surrender to him. So the reality is we cannot possibly see the Supreme Lord with our material eyes, or understand him as he is by mental speculation, by our mundane scholarship or material intelligence. Therefore the Bhakti scriptures advise us we have to hear from a self-realized person. We have to hear from the pure devotee of the Lord. They know the Supreme Lord perfectly, and they can teach you the process by which you can purify your consciousness. And then what happens, you become very dear to the Lord, and then he'll reveal himself to you. So, that saying, don't try and see the Supreme Lord, but act in such a way that he'll see you. So it's, and probably most of us had this experience before we became devotees. We used to think, yeah, maybe some of you, but I know myself, I used to think, well, who is God? Is there a God? I mean, who is he? Are we all God? Or is God just this energy? Or is, the Christians are telling us, down at the fellowship, people are telling us Jesus is God. But, it's like everyone's pretty confused. So it's just inconceivable that somehow or other, even though as Krishna is telling us, thousands of perfected souls out of them even hardly one knows him in truth. But here we are, we're all sitting here, and we understand that Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of God. This is by the mercy of the pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, that we have access to this knowledge. Sometimes I meditate on that during Mangalarti, actually. I meditate on Prabhupada just standing there on the dock of Calcutta before he came to America. I read this in the Amrita, he was standing there on the dock, chanting his rounds. He had his 2 trunks of books there, had a small bag. And actually there was one man, he was kind of like a distant associate of Prabhupada. He happened to be down there near there. He may have even dropped him off. But he kind of saw Prabhupada there, and he said he was just standing there, and he just looked like a lone fighter. And you think, wow, Prabhupada's just standing there on the dock, he's about to come to America to spread Krishna consciousness, it's like amazing when you think about it, he just came. And if he never came, none of us would be here today. None of us would ever have known anything about who God is, who Krishna is, what it means to love and surrender and serve the Supreme Lord. We would have just lived out our lives in complete ignorance, actually. So it was Krishna's desire, and by the mercy of Krishna, and said by the mercy of Krishna one gets a bona fide spiritual master, and by the mercy of the spiritual master one gets Krishna. So here in these Vedic literatures, which have been passed down through the ages to our present day by this whole bona fide chain of spiritual masters, we find so many detailed descriptions of the Supreme Lord, of the Supreme Lord's personal form, his features, his pastimes, his qualities, his personality, his eternal abode, his eternal associates. So much detailed information. I mean, no one else has access to this knowledge. So the Vedas, they tell us, they inform us that the Supreme Being has this purely spiritual or transcendental, extremely beautiful form. And his name's Krishna. And Krishna is that personal, loving and lovable aspect of the Supreme. And he's offering his love to each and every one of us so intimately and completely. It is said that each and every one of us will feel that we're his most beloved. And we know the name of Krishna, it means the all-attractive one, because Krishna, he has the potency to attract the mind, to attract the senses, to attract the heart of every conscious living being. And the name Krishna, even though Krishna, he has so many devotees, and he has so many different relationships with these different devotees, and he has unlimited characteristics and qualities and attributes, and consequently he has unlimited names which mean all those different things. But the name Krishna is the original, supreme, most powerful name of God, and expresses the sum total of his infinite qualities and characteristics. And it is said that every feature of Krishna's transcendental form is likened to a tidal wave of luscious splendor that just inundates the devotees' senses and just drenches their hearts with unlimited satisfaction. That Krishna's beautifully decorated body, it just creates this daily festival for the eyes, and everything about Krishna is just simply wonderful and just simply adorable. Actually, it is said that we were made in his image. The fact that we have a head and 2 arms and 2 legs and a body, a form which is like Krishna, that we were created in his image, just so we can completely fall in love with him. And of course Krishna has his own planet, Goloka Vrindavan, where we find this just continuous festival of joy, where Krishna eternally resides in his eternal pre-youth form of a 7 to 10-year-old boy. You know, we hear about Krishna, he left Vrindavan, because Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. He can never leave Vrindavan because of the love of his pure devotees. He can never leave, even if he wants to. So when Krishna went to Mathura and he went to Dwar, became the king of the Yadus, that was an expansion of Krishna. But Krishna, he's there. His eternal pre-youth form of a 7 to 10-year-old boy is there. I mean, who would have thought? Who would have thought that God is a 7 to 10-year-old boy living in Vrindavan, herding the cows, playing with his friends? Who would have thought? Actually, even, one Maharaja Michael, he was giving a class, he said, how is it that Prabhupada came to America and convinced everyone that God is this little blue boy playing the flute with the peacock feather and performing all these pastimes as a Garuda? How is it that he could everyone just accepted it? And the truth is that when Prabhupada spoke, without a doubt, with so much conviction, Prabhupada was, he was so, utterly convinced and resonated this conviction in his powerful words. It's just penetrated into people's hearts. So Krishna has this complexion, he's the colour of a sapphire or a blue lotus flower. He wears beautiful silken garments of beautiful forest flowers, a beautiful crown with a peacock feather and jewellery. He has dark, long, curling hair. He plays exquisite melodies on his transcendental flute, which captures the hearts of his pure devotees. When they hear that flute sound, they become so captivated. They just become they go into like a trance, become mesmerized. And they just start remembering Krishna's beautiful form, his pastimes, his sweetness of love with his pure devotees. Prabhupada actually said that when we chant the Maha Mantra, just like the devotees when they got captivated by Krishna's flute, when we chant that Maha Mantra, we become captured by Krishna. And we become attracted to everything about Krishna. So he has this amazing form. And Radharani actually said that Krishna's body is an ocean of beauty, an ocean of nectarine handsomeness. And of course he has this incredible face, just shines like the moon, and he has this incredible sweet smile. There's that meditation, Krishna standing by the Jamuna in his threefold bending form, and he takes the flute to his mouth, and then he smiles, and then he plays these beautiful, complex, melodic tunes on his flute. And of course the Vedas, they list those excellences. Unlimited beauty. How can we imagine Krishna's beauty? Imagine someone millions of times more beautiful than the most beautiful person you could ever imagine. And Krishna's beauty is always increasing, especially in the association of his pure devotees. It is said that because of their love, his love increases. And of course his love, his beauty reaches its pinnacle in the association of Srimati Radharani, because her love is just the greatest. And then he has unlimited beauty, unlimited strength. I mean, we can't even imagine how powerful Krishna is. He's systematically conducting all the affairs of millions and millions of universes and planets, both spiritual and material, just by the raising of his eyebrow, just by the waving of his magic wand, just by his all pervasive energies. He has unlimited knowledge. He's the source of all knowledge. Actually, it even said that all this, whatever we've tried to learn or whatever we've forgotten, all knowledge that exists in the world today, everything that people are trying to learn in universities, whatever it is, medicine, mathematics, science, all originally has its roots in the Vedas and has been broken down into different branches of knowledge through time. And Krishna is the source of all that knowledge. And he has unlimited wealth. The reality is everything belongs to Krishna. How can you have more wealth than that? Unlimited fame. Krishna is known through millions of 70 million universes and the higher planetary systems and all the spiritual worlds, the Vaikuntha planets. Krishna's fame is just spread far and wide. He has unlimited renunciation, or another concept of renunciation is independence. Krishna can just do whatever he likes. He's not restricted in any way at all. And he possesses these excellences to just an infinite degree. So these Vedic literatures, they make the Supreme Lord accessible to us by telling us everything about him. And ultimately he'll reveal himself according to our aspirations. So in reality, what everyone's really hankering for deep within their hearts is a perfect loving relationship. Everyone's hankering for that. Which means that what we're really hankering for in our heart, we're hankering for Krishna. Because only Krishna can accommodate everyone's loving endeavours perfectly. And he'll always reciprocate perfectly our love. Whatever little endeavour we make to please him, he'll reciprocate. It's only then that our loving propensity will naturally be fully satisfied. People are out there in the world trying to find their soulmate, they're trying to establish good relationships with each other in this age of hypocrisy and quarrel. It's so difficult. People, the reality is, and if people are honest with themselves, they'll tell you there's a problem in loving. That in this world, you're not really able to love in such a way that you become completely satisfied, or you satisfy the other person. And because of that frustration, so many people are turning to alcohol and drugs and violence and so many divorces, and it's just ongoing problem in the world. Of course, when in our Vedic culture, when relationships are based on a mutual relationship which is based on putting Krishna in the center of your life and trying to please Krishna and serve Krishna, then those relationships, they can last. They can have some basis. And it's only then, that people are fully satisfied in their hearts. Of course, love is something we can understand because we share it with one another. And this will, in a sense, it'll help us understand our personal relationship with Krishna, where we, another name for Krishna, of course, is Atmarama. He's completely self-satisfied. He doesn't need anything for his personal satisfaction, for his enjoyment. But we see he longs for our love and devotion. It brings him the greatest happiness, the greatest enjoyment, to be overwhelmed by the love of his devotees. And therefore he longs for our love and devotion. And the more we serve him sincerely, the more he appreciates that service. And the more spiritually realized we become, the more advancement we make, the more happy we become, the more satisfied and peaceful we become. We don't have to go to some elaborate plan or go to incredible endeavour to try and adjust our life in such a way that we'll be happy. But as devotees, we understand, just by trying to make Krishna happy, just trying to please Krishna, by living the pure spiritual and godly life, by trying to serve him in our humble way, naturally Krishna will be happy and we'll become happy. We'll get that inner happiness. So in the Bhakti school we learn that to truly love the Supreme Lord, it's not just something to be imagined. It's not just some fantasy or some sentimentality, but actually it's a great art and a great science. Therefore we need guidance, we need education, we also need inspiration to follow the path seriously. So Krishna advises we have to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. And he's a bona fide spiritual master. He's specifically empowered by the Lord to bless us with genuine spiritual understanding. And so the Vedic scriptures, they declare that, such a genuine guru is very rare. And it's only those who are very, very fortunate, like all of us, to find such a guru and realize the truth. A bona fide spiritual master is someone who can teach you what other gurus cannot teach you, what other gurus do not know. And such a bona fide guru, he's a representative of the Supreme Lord. He's always canvassing on behalf of the Supreme, for everyone to become truly devoted to the Supreme, for everyone try to learn to love the Supreme Lord. He never says that he is God or you can become God. He simply presents himself as a humble servant of God, and he's teaching others how to love God and how to serve God. As I said, it is said only by the mercy of Krishna that one gets a bona fide spiritual master, and it's only by the mercy of the spiritual master that one can re-establish his loving relationship with the Supreme Lord and return back to Godhead at the end of one's life. So, actually, I might finish there. Does anyone have any questions I'd like to ask, or like to add anything?
I'm wondering about just the last point you were making about the spiritual master. If you can speak a little bit about how to develop a more personal relationship with the spiritual master. If it's not available, is it more about the hearing process?
They say, some people say, you have to pray for the mercy of the Guru. You have to really try and get the Guru's blessings in your life. But in one sense, the Guru's mercy is always there. In a sense that he's at the time of initiation, he plants the seed of devotional service, the Bhakti Lata creeper in our hearts. And by following this process of Krishna consciousness, that through hearing and chanting and serving, that seed fructifies into a creeper, and it grows. It grows and it penetrates through the coverings of the material universe, and eventually it enters into the spiritual world, where it develops fruits and flowers into love of Godhead. So, I mean, the Guru's mercy is there in a sense that we have opportunities to associate with devotees, to chant the holy name, to study the scriptures. You know, the spiritual master has given so many instructions. Serving the Lord, opportunities to go out and preach and get the Lord's mercy, like this. So it is said, you know, we shouldn't think that the Guru's mercy is just going to do everything, and we don't have to do anything. It's like I said, some people think like that it's like this, in Africa they have these elephants that go through the jungle. And they have these guys out the front just chucking down the jungle with the big machetes. And every while the people are sitting on the elephant, on this little palanquin, just sipping the tea, enjoying the ride. So it's like that. Disciple is just someone who just sits on the palanquin, he's just enjoying the ride, and he doesn't really have to do anything. And the spiritual master is just, he's chopping down the jungle, clearing the path. The Guru's mercy does everything, that we don't have to do anything. We don't really have to apply ourselves to Krishna consciousness. So in that's one sense, you know, the relationship with the Guru. His mercy is always there, it is said. And the mercy comes, it's like a reciprocation. And you know, the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, there's that verse, you know, one should try and, the secret of success, of advancing the spiritual life is how to please the spiritual master. So, I mean, the spiritual master is not there at every moment of the day to watch us, seek to become pleased with us. But the spiritual master, Krishna is situated in his heart and also in the heart of Krishna. So it's automatically, and Krishna is pleased, the spiritual master is pleased in that sense. But also, you know, it is said we have to be the relationship with the spiritual master, one has to be very, very careful in dealing with the spiritual master. You know, one should not be very careful not to just see him as a normal, everyday person. Even though he may act like a normal person, we should never consider him a normal person. But he's actually, as I said, there's so many verses there that say the spiritual master, he's like a manifestation of all the demigods. He's like a representative of Krishna. We should always try and meditate on how dear the spiritual master is to Krishna. How he's engaged in loving devotional service to Krishna, how dear he is to Krishna. And we should be very, very careful. It is said, you know, just like when you're associating with the deities, with the spiritual master, you have to be very, very careful that you don't become too familiar, over-familiar. You know, there's even situations where, even when we're dealing with Srila Prabhupada, disciples became too familiar, and they started trying to instruct their spiritual master without his wanting that instruction. You know, like that. And they can commit offense to the spiritual master. Actually, it's considered a mad elephant offense, a really great offense that can really stifle your spiritual progress. So one should always try and serve the spiritual master favorably. And it is said that a genuine disciple, he never feels himself independent of the spiritual master. But he always, if he's going to do something in his life, go somewhere, he should always confide in the spiritual master, get his blessings. You know, it's unfortunately it's become a bit of a thing in modern day ISKCON. David Ridderswamy was talking about this in his quote. It seems like that there's so many of the disciples these days, they want to be independent. Rather than take advice from the Guru and get the Guru's direction and blessings and advice, they want to feel that they made their own choices and decisions about what they did in their life. And sometimes it can be very difficult, like that. But a genuine disciple, he always feels that he's never independent of the Guru, and he takes the instructions of his spiritual master as his life and soul. And he just lays his life down for the spiritual master. He offers his life, his wealth, his time, his energy, all at the feet of his Guru Maharaj. Understanding that actually, ultimately, because the spiritual master has connected him to Krishna, and that you can never actually repay the debt to the spiritual master, what he's actually given us. So it is said, that in the early stages you might not really understand fully, who the spiritual master is, or what his position is, or how much he's blessed you. But as you mature in Krishna consciousness, just like as it said that in the beginning, when you first get married, the relationship is not fully established. But after you've been married for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, 20 years, the relationship develops. So similarly, in the beginning, the relationship with the spiritual master is not fully developed. But as you mature in your spiritual practice of life, the relationship matures. And then you realize how deep the spiritual master becomes so dear to you. And you become also dear to the spiritual master. And of course, sometimes the spiritual master will chastise you even. But a genuine disciple, a mature disciple, he feels great pleasure when the spiritual master chastises him, realizing that the spiritual master, he always has the disciple's best interest at heart. There's even one story where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Prabhupada says, he chastised Prabhupada one day, and Prabhupada said, I felt so much pleasure when I got that chastisement from my spiritual master. So it's said, some people, they think, they get into this consciousness that the spiritual master's not giving me enough. He's not giving me enough mercy, instructions. He's not giving me enough personal association and direction. He's not taking enough interest in my life. So it's an immature devotee, he may get into this kind of mood. But actually it is said the spiritual master can give unlimitedly. But we have to be ready. When we're ready, the interaction it'll take place, it'll fructify as we make our advancement in spiritual life. So there's a few things to think about, I suppose. I can't really say much more, but Does anyone else have any questions? Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Itaratascha swavikyaswarat Tene brahmaridaya dikavye muyanti yat suryaha Tejo vardi madam yatavinimayo yatrati sargam rissa Damna svena sadani rastakukam satyam param dimahe Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam Vedam vastavam atravastu shivadam tapam trayan mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamune krite kim vaparerisvaraha Sadyuridi avarujyate trakriti bisushubhistat Nigama kalpatara galitam phalam Sukumukat amritadrava samyutam Pibata Bhagavatam rasamadayam Mohura Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka